Greetings, fellow Toastmasters. Today, we are going to be having a discussion. We're talking about a specific role in life, leadership. Many of us will at some point encounter the aspects of leadership, particularly in Toastmasters, where leaders are made. Nikita told us about. As a leadership coach, a past president of a club mentor, I really appreciate the significance of these roles. Toastmasters is not just about speaking, it's more than that. It's about communication. That includes leadership. We're going to be hearing from our panelists that I've put together. These panelists have personal experiences of leadership, both inside and outside of Toastmasters. Now, before I introduce my panelists, I also want you to sit there and think about questions you might like to ask them when you get your turn. If there's time, you'll be able to ask them to yourself around this very significant topic. I'd like to first of all introduce my panel. First of all, we have Matt Parker. Matt, who's undertaken roles including area director, VPE, and twice as president. Wow. He's also an author of a public speaking book. She currently AD of J7 with previous roles as President, VPPR, which I believe is Vice President of Public Relations, and she's the Mentor Master. Murielle is a marketing program manager for Castrol and BP, and has dual nationality, British and French. That sounds pretty awesome. We also have Henry Bowles, currently president of Oxford Orators, previously VPE with recent experience as content chair. Henry is on his second doctorate in classics at Oxford, and rumour has it that Henry is partial to a bit of Red Bull and dancing to Michael Jackson at 2:30 a.m. We also have Rana. Now, Rana has been a Toastmaster 3 years and has already served contest chair twice. Rana, international Toastmaster. She's joining us today from Germany. She's a Toastmaster both in the UK and Germany. Ratna, thank you so much for making the effort to join us today. Ratna is a global health and safe culture director for a global company. Why have I invited these people? Because I believe that they have experience in leadership in and outside of Toastmasters. I can't wait for them to share their insights around the questions I have for them. So panel, if in a moment I'm going to invite you to share your experience and thoughts and insights around some unanticipated questions on this topic. And later, if we have a minute for students to ask a couple of questions themselves. Each question you'll be given 2 to 3 minutes to answer. And that way we can hear from all panels. Thank you very much. First question is to Henry. Henry, has volunteering to be a leader in Toastmasters help with developing your skills as a speaker?
Absolutely. The question is absolutely. I think the more fundamental question is, can I adduce evidence? Yeah, and yes. So I am a grad student. That means that I both teach and study. And I'll say that as a speaker in the classroom, Toastmasters has helped immensely. I mean, we see a lot of other academics at any age whose communication skills, ironically, because we study the verbal arts, those of us who are in the humanities, ironically, a lot of our communication skills are really lacking. And so being in Toastmasters, becoming a veteran at Toastmasters, as I increasingly am and will be because I'll be in here for decades, really puts one ahead of the pack, both in the classroom, in connecting with students, and you see it, and also at conferences. So keep in mind, a lot of you don't know this, but a humanities conference consists of people, traditionally, this is just the genre, reading papers. When we say, oh, did Professor X read a paper at the conference? They literally mean read a paper. And so obviously, that's unacceptable for us in this club. And so when I present at the conference, and when other people who are trained in Toastmasters, who go through Toastmasters present at conferences, we're much more likely to give an actual talk, an actual presentation. So that helps us stand out. And then I think in terms of just general speaking, being a leader in Toastmasters makes us more audience-centric, which is so key. It makes us less self-absorbed, I think. And so anything that takes us out of ourselves and make us think more about our interlocutors, because each doesn't count until it's concretized in the ears of the audience. That helps. That's helpful. So back over to you, Kyle.
Thank you very much, Henry. Thank you for that insight. My next question is to Murielle. Murielle, what skills have Toastmasters given you, which has helped you deal with the turmoil that we are experiencing right now? Over to you.
Thank you, Carla. Well, at Toastmaster, we're always a step ahead of the game, seemingly. I can only recall that I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before we had the lockdown, or before we had the right message in the UK, that we had a notification that contests and meetings could be done online. And I still remember, that was only a few weeks ago, how shocked we were. But it was a very clear message. And from the leadership down to our district, we passed it on, took on that challenge, and then we adapted really quickly to this mode of communication, which is what we're doing right now. And then, so when the whole lockdown arrived, it was actually much easier, you know. So by being very nimble, which is what Toastmaster is, by putting things in practice at a club level, by trying, you know, trial and error, I think we've become much better, much more resilient with change. And that's where I think it's been helping in this turmoil.
Well, lovely. Thank you very much, Murielle. Thank you. And this question is to Matt. Matt, you held various different roles in Toastmasters. What's been most interesting and why?
It's quite an interesting question, that, about which of the roles are most interesting between BPE, President, Area Director, and also like VPM as well. I think the most helpful for anyone in a club would be the VPM, because when you're getting started, it helps you actually get to meet lots of different people. In terms of the most interesting, I would have to say it's probably President, because they might say it's Area Director, but personally I think if you manage it correctly, the most intimate experience for learning has to be being President, because suddenly you have a team of people who look at you and they say, what do you want to do? When in your life does that happen? It never does, really. And so for me, oh my gosh, in my early 20s as president, having people who are much older than me, or should I say a little older than me, say to me, Matt, this is ultimately your decision, what you want to do, is incredibly empowering, especially when you go back to your day job where suddenly you're just lowest rung on the company and you think, actually, I'm capable of making these decisions. And so I think everyone should be president at least once, even if you think I'm the least presidential person available. Because when you do the role, you're going to suddenly realize it's not rocket science, it's not out of your grasp, you're perfectly capable of doing it. And you should give it a go, because then no matter what role you are in your current job, or if you're self-employed, you know that you can lead a team. From that, it can escalate to all kinds of things, from even just having your own parties, doing your own things, because suddenly you realize, if I have 3 other people, I can coordinate and get it working. So for me, I'd say President was the most interesting. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you. It's really, I want to ask you some more, back to you in a minute. Our next question is to Ratna. Ratna, what aspects and qualities of leadership have you been able to bring into Toastmasters and take out from Toastmasters?
Okay. Thanks, Carla. Yes, I mean, I only joined 3 years ago. I'm quite fortunate. I work in a very global role. And I'd say the biggest quality that I've brought, which is very personal leadership quality to me, is mentorship. I think mentoring everybody, you know, we're born to, you know, where leaders are born. Everybody is capable of being a leader. And if we're really true to our fellow Toastmasters, then we should be able to mentor at whatever level, because it's about different people connecting with different people. And just because you have a role as someone who's a leader and been in Toastmasters for ages, I think the role that I have in my personal job, I was able to bring that. And more importantly, because I work in a lot of regions, I mentor a lot of people in lots of different countries as well, which we probably underestimate the cultural aspect that we have in Toastmasters, even only in the UK. If you look at the audience here, everyone is a person. They all have a different cultural background, but yet together, we're as Toastmasters, but we should be careful not to put everybody into a box.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Rat. Thank you. My next question is to Henry. Henry, leadership doesn't just exist in a committee role. We have contests and other likewise events as well. What leadership skills or techniques do you think we need those specific occasions, especially now in changing times?
Well, leadership by definition, I think, is going to rise and fall. It's a cliche, but it's true. Rise and fall on our ability, on our change skills. I've recently been rereading one of my favorite books, Who Moved My Cheese? And it's all about change skills, dealing with the fact that the cheese is always moving. Deal with it. Heraclitus would have told us this, although he was in the 6th century BC. Never step in the same river twice. In terms of the kind of leadership skills that we need, and that we hit upon in Toastmasters, number one, when you're organizing that kind of thing, basic project management, being able to move from the brainstorming stage to the organizing the different deliverables stage to measuring those deliverables and managing them until they actually materialize. That's all crucial. For some people who come from the corporate world, I know it's old hat. For a lot of people who are in this organization, people like me, people who come from academia, it might be a little bit different in STEM, but in the humanities, we do very little collaborative work. We have very little training in project management. Even running meetings was a whole new language, a whole new patois for someone like me. And so that's been invaluable. So all of these kinds of skills, these kinds of basic organizational skills, I would say, project management, these are things that we all need. They all go to adaptability for everyone. And the extent to which this organization can make them universal, that speaks to Toastmasters' relevance now more than ever. And that kind of also goes to what Nikita was pitching. All right, back to you, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Henry. And next question is to Murielle. Murielle, what was the most scariest thing that you had to do in Toastmasters, and how did you deal with it?
Wow, the scariest thing I had to do. Okay. It was my personal trauma that I had last summer. I was stuck in Dublin for 5 weeks when my partner was ill in intensive care. At that time, I was planning to stay there, but we had a officer training. And the scariest thing is to let go and realize I couldn't be in control of that training, and to trust the people I was working with. That was Henry, amazing partner in crime. And I had asked at the time Nikita if she'd stand in for me. And, you know, it's to feel comfortable with that. And I did, you know, I was thinking, well, that will happen, what will happen. But I was able to go back, and that was an amazing event. So that was the scariest thing, is to feel calm under pressure.
Wow, what was it like being, did you enjoy Dublin? Did you get used to it, being out there for so long?
I was all right. It was fine. It was fine. It's better being home, to be honest, but it was fine.
Welcome back home. Thank you, Murielle. My next question is to Matt. Matt, from your experience, what's been the valuable learning for you specifically, and how have you used it?
From Toastmasters specifically, or from anything?
From anything leadership related.
Anything leadership related. I think a fair part of it, to be honest with you, is trial and error, because to begin with, you don't really know what does constitute leadership. I wouldn't say there's been any books which have really helped me so much on the topic, but I think the best way to learn is actually to be the organizer first and then the president. Seriously, I say this to everyone. I am not a fan too much of someone coming into a club and becoming president straight away, because they have no idea how that club runs. No idea. And the first thing that a president wants to do, or any manager, seriously, look at a manager at like a BP garage. When they become manager, the first thing they're going to want to do is move the shelves.
Yeah.
For no reason. They want to say, I'm manager now, I'm making a change. I'm going to move the crisps over here. They might not know whether that's a good idea or not, but they're going to want to change something. And as president, that's a great thing. It's great to make changes and have some momentum. But unless you know how the club works and what it's really struggling with, you're not in the best position to make changes. And so that's why I have so much respect for people like Tim, who've been VPE first. Because once you've been VPE first, you know just how hard it is to fill up roles. You know who in your club is speaking the most, who needs to speak more, and then you're in the best position possible to make the changes. And so for me, being the VPE before the president, absolutely invaluable. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, wow. What's the easiest job on the team, would you say?
For me as well? So I don't think that's really fair, to be honest, as to which is the easiest, because personally I find note taking really hard because I'm so slow at doing it. So for me, secretary would be a very hard role, but for other people they'd find it quite easy. I think with everything, you get in what you put out. What you put in is what you get out of it. I know people who've done the secretary role who take it so seriously, and they take notes on every single meeting, and they cross-compare them to previous year's notes and load them to the website. So I think it's down to the individual and how much effort they put in, to be honest with you.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate it. Thank you. My next question is to Ratna. Ratna, what's been your most positive experience leadership in Toastmasters? And what do you think we need to improve or grow?
Yeah, my most positive experience in Toastmasters has really been, I unfortunately cannot take any committee roles as such because I travel so much in my job. But I'm honestly always surprised at how many people, because of the role I have out of my job as a leader, if I've suggested anything, or people, because of people know what I do for my job, they still, in the North Bucks Club that I belong to, they always still ask me for my advice as well, so, and which then contributes to the meeting, which I think is really fantastic, because you can still influence as a leader, even if you can't take up a role. I would genuinely love to take up a role, but my job just doesn't allow me to do it. And I think it's fantastic if a president or a VPE can see the potential that some people who come to the club who really can't commit for a genuine reason, and they actually take that leadership skill on board as well. And that's credit to them for doing that as well, I think. So for me, that's been a really positive, that I can positively still contribute to my Toastmasters club.
Yeah.
In terms of what we can improve, honestly, I think Nikita's said it really well, really well tonight. This is a massive opportunity for us to improve as Toastmasters from a leadership point of view. I personally feel that, I see a lot of people, and it always seems to be about the speeches. I know there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I'm a project manager and I get all of that, but I feel that this environment of Zoom will actually bring out a lot more leaders as well, because when you're all behind in your own screen, there's other skills and attributes that other people have, and we really need to encourage those people to come out of their come into their comfort zone, because everyone meeting face to face is not always in their comfort zone as well. And I've seen it already in a few clubs that meetings I've attended, where the original committee members are actually out of their comfort zone with this whole new environment, and they're learning to use the other leadership skills. I think I totally support what Nikita said. We can actually build different skills of leaders in this new environment.
Yeah, that's well put. Absolutely, I totally echo that. Thank you, Ratna. Thank you. Now, I'd like to ask this next question to the whole panel, on the panel. With the current global situation in mind, what will we have to change in terms of leadership in Toastmasters in the short term, medium term, and possibly for long term? I'd like to ask that to the panel collectively. Henry, go Henry.
I'll just say very simply that for me, public speaking, both as a general skill and what we do in Toastmasters, which for me is a beautiful laboratory, public speaking brings with it social responsibility. And so in this current challenge, the number one skill that I think we are in a position to foster, that we have the responsibility to foster, is to produce voices, because there's so much frenzy and worry and anxiety, which produces more frenzy, worry, and anxiety. Doesn't help. And so what we can do as good communicators and as mentors and teachers, modelers of rising communicators, create as many voices of calm as we can and send them out into the world. People who communicate clearly, who can be forward-looking, who can be solution-oriented. All of that is an antidote to the current, I think, kind of crowd psychology that we're seeing. So that's what we can do.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. I've got a question from Murielle. Oh, you got your hand up anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's hard. We're in a fuzzy world. So for my speech, I was talking about change, but I think we don't know where it's going to go, right? But we're in a VUCA world. I talked about VUCA world, which is, you can look it up, but it requires adaptive leadership, right? We were learning that in my company before COVID, and now we're like, oh my God, this is the VUCA ultimate scenario. And for that, we have to be very adaptive. So I think we have to listen more from the ground roots. We have to try different things, so leave a little bit more freedom for people to feel comfortable with, with new things. We need calm voices. I agree.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to see. I think we don't know yet how it's going to change, but we're going to change for a lot for well, and we are at the forefront. So Toastmaster, we're going to be prepared to survive, and I think we are going to survive as an organization.
Yes.
So just embrace it. Just do the best we can, and then that's it.
Hello, I love your motto. Your motto. The feel the fear and do it anyway. So how do you relate that to leadership?
Yeah, I volunteered as a change agent, and I was like given a motto: feel the fear and do it anywhere. Is kind of is my story, is my Toastmaster story, really. Feel the fear and go and stand on stage and talk to these people. I think here in the current environment is about giving it a go, like go on a Zoom call and give it a go.
Lovely. Thank you, Murielle. I'd like you, with the time that I've got left, I'd like to give the audience an opportunity to put a question out to one of the panels. So, who would like to ask one of the panel's question? Any volunteers? Go ahead.
What would any of you say to someone who is new coming into Toastmasters in terms of their skill development for the future?
Can you repeat that again, Nick? Sorry.
What would any of you say to a newcomer to Toastmasters about your skill development for the future?
Shall I go, Carla?
Go for it. Yes.
Yep. So if it was a newcomer, I think it's, as we've said before, use it as a safe haven to practice. We're all here to help. And the most important thing I would say to somebody is just be yourself and don't be intimidated by all the good speakers you see, because you yourself are special enough to be able to bring something, and we're all unique. So don't be scared to do that, because that's really the foundation of what actually builds a leader. Not that we mold somebody into what we are as Toastmasters, but who they actually are. Our job should be that we help them become the better person of who they are as well. And from whether it's at Toastmasters or it's at work, they will then always be their authentic self, which is really, for me, the true part of leadership.
Yeah. I echo that, and it's what Henry spoke about in his speech about you. When you come into Toastmasters, you see all these speakers, and you think, "Oh my God, they're speaker gods."
Yeah, that's right.
Like the way you put that, Henry, in your speech. That was brilliant. Yeah. Who else would like? Who's got a question for one of the panels? Any others? Neil, go ahead, Neil. What's your question? Who are you? Who would you like to ask?
So, hi everyone. My question this evening is to ask the panel, a couple of members from the panel, as to what are the hurdles that you faced and experienced as you in journey through the Toastmasters progression journey, and how did you overcome those experiences, those hurdles in your experiences? Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Who is that aimed for, Neil?
It's open question to a couple of members from the panel. Thank you.
Matt, do you want to give this one?
I think one of the biggest hurdles, to be honest, is literally hurdles, and that is a lack of momentum and lack of speed going through the process. Because in an ideal world, this is how I think Toastmasters should work. Ideal world here. 2 meetings, one day after another. You get up on stage, give your speech, get feedback, next day, do it again. Right? Because that's going to stop everyone from stressing. Because what happens instead is you get feedback. What the hell are you meant to do with it? If it's so specific on a certain speech, it just sits with you and makes you think, you know, I'm not good enough. Why have I got this feedback saying I should do this with my slides? Because I can't fix it. I'm just stuck with it having a negative experience. Whereas if we had more momentum, more speed, we could do another speech, we could learn from it. And this is something I'm going to talk about in my speech in a little bit. When you've got a few speeches a week, suddenly you improve, and feedback is super helpful because you can use it straight away. And so how I've gone over this kind of hurdle of not having enough speed is quite simply, you just say to the VPE, I'm happy at any time if someone drops out to do a speech. And the way you do that is you just always have at least one speech in the bag ready to go all the time. And that way you can get a little bit more momentum. And if that doesn't work, have some extra projects on the go, do some extra things. Everything you can to keep your speed up. That's my advice to you, Neil.
Murielle, go.
Another challenge, Neil, completely different for me, was time, because I'm quite busy. I have a family, 2 kids, I have work and other commitments, so I found it quite challenging. But I remember when I first come to Toastmaster, I could not commit, so I actually did not join. And then when I did join, I think the secret is to break down the elephant and to do, there was this from Carlos about the one thing. You know what your priority is, you could just, do some time for a Toastmaster, then you allocate and keep that time, make it a priority for you, and give you more goals that you can achieve. And that could be a speaking goal, or that could be a leadership goal. And you could do 1 year at a time, 1 speak at a time, 1 year at a time. You can, you would make progress.
Lovely. Thank you, Murielle. Ratna, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say, I think it's the same. You have the hurdle of, from a time point of view, I'm in the same position as Murielle. But one thing I've actually done, Carla mentioned before, I'm also a member at the Toastmasters in Germany, in Essen. I only joined that earlier this year. And I think, going back to what Matt said as well, go to other clubs and do speeches as well, because they may have them in the same week as well. So I've been to a couple of other clubs. I've joined your club this evening as well. So even if your VP doesn't want to change their minds, because sometimes people don't like to, because they like to stick to rules as well, I think there's plenty of other Toastmasters that where you can just go and practice and speak anyway. So it's also your responsibility to overcome that hurdle, which really is key to you becoming a good leader also.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Rana. Well, I'm afraid, folks, that concludes our time for this discussion today. I could go on at least for half an hour. So many questions, and another time, another place maybe. But I would like to just thank my awesome panelists, Matt, Henry, Murielle, Rat. Thank you very much. And also, of course, to the wonderful audience. Thank you for listening, participating, coming up with some wonderful questions. I do enjoy the discussion. I know I did. And with that, I now hand over to our next speaker, Matt.